And we're live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. Welcome to the imho.love show. I'm Lou Angelwolf. This is Mike Murburg. We're broadcasting live from the Darby Ranch out here in beautiful Darby, Florida, home of the HICE5 events that happen every month here when there is no moon. Welcome, everybody. Hi. We've been doing this show a long time, over 4 years. IMHO is, we're going into 3.5 years on IMHO. And it just always, if you look back, if you use these times as like little tabs, man, so much has changed over the last couple of years. I remember just a couple of years ago in March, we were getting locked down on that Friday the 13th there. And I did the show by myself in my little apartment back there in countryside. And now here we are. My world has certainly changed a lot. And boy, everybody else's has too. So we're keeping up. How you doing tonight, Mike?
I'm doing fine.
Are you?
All things considered, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, you're working like a madman, and I appreciate you taking the time. I know we had a busy weekend. We had a CE5 over the weekend.
We made good contact. It was nice.
Very good contact.
Early on, sure.
Saw some pretty things. I missed it, just as I...
Sorry to ask you. Sorry.
I had to do a tech thing, and just as I turned around to do it, this big, beautiful, slow walker comes across the sky, and those are like...
It was actually a fast walker.
A fast walker, okay.
It was like zip, and then it's kind of stopped, and then somebody hit it with a laser light, and then it signaled back, and then it headed on out.
Wow.
Yeah, so it crossed a good part of the sky at hypersonic speed. It was up there pretty high, way up there, probably 60, 70, 80,000 feet.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, it was a good one.
Yeah, we get blessed all the time out here. And a really, really beautiful group of people over the weekend. Some really peaceful folks. And we had a very, very good event. To find out more about the CE5 events, you can go to Tampa Bay CE5 Darby Ranch on Meetup. It's all just like it sounds. CE5 Darby Ranch, Tampa, whatever. Any of those words will get you here. And then you just fill in all the blanks on Meetup. And then if we don't know you already, we'll get to know you. And, just a few months ago, we didn't think things could get more confusing, but now they've become entirely more confusing. Apparently the flu's over.
Oh, yes, good.
We're not doing that now.
I heard that there's like no flu anymore.
None?
No. Not as long as there's COVID.
Oh.
Yeah. It chased all the flu bugs away.
Oh.
Yeah.
Handy. But man, plenty of other changes going on in the world. And this all happened in this last week or so since we were on the air, because we didn't have this to talk about last week. It was starting to groundswell a little bit. But as, unless you're, living in a quiet little cellar somewhere, you probably know that there's a military action going on in the Ukraine with Russia. There's several. There's just so many factors involved with this. You don't even know, and the big thing with me is just the general mistrust of the general information. Everything is fluffed up and romanticized and dramatized to the point of like you're going, oh, I see where they were pulling on my heartstrings there.
They're all pulling on your heartstring. It's all propaganda that we're getting on the news here across the board. And it, once again, just like anybody else who stepped out in front of the war in Iraq, you get cursed down as non-patriotic or non-human because you state the obvious. And the obvious in the case of the Ukraine is very, very simple: is that that the United States was behind a political coup that happened in 2014, and we instituted our own person in there. Matter of fact, the CIA gave the go-ahead to hold on a second.
It's okay. And for those of you, Mike speaks from a very much a place of experience. He has visited the Ukraine several times in his life.
And I speak Russian.
And he speaks Russian. So this isn't a newspaper clipping that he's taking and modifying, although he never does that anyway. This is real, heartfelt, a spiritual man in a expansive place, with a very different culture than what we have here, and he loves those people and studies those people, and
very much. I know people more than those who live in the Ukraine. They're noble, they're wonderful, they're friendly.
Can you speak up a little bit?
They're
Mike?
kind, they're courteous, they're everything human beings should be. They're the result of thousands of years of the Slavs being slaughtered by everybody from the Huns to the Germans. And that's a pretty wide range of humanity who comes in and kills you every couple hundred years, including the Swedes as well. But what happened in 2014, the CIA came in and said, look, we want Petro Poroshenko to be the head of your government here. And what happened is that under Poroshenko, he put together a bloc of parties known as the People's Front, Self-Reliance, the Radical Party, and the Fatherland Party. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Go figure. So you think that the fascists and the people from the right might have been a little bit overrepresented in the government that we decided to institute and overthrow the prior government?
Wow.
And that's what happened. And then when we got all the right wingers in, we made sure they kept it. Now I was there in from 2006 to 2000 till 10 years ago, till 2014. Okay. And I had a chance to see the entire country, including the Crimean. I used to vacation there on the Black Sea. I used to vacation in Yalta, which is a nice place to be.
Go ahead. Yeah, I think we're still on the air.
Are we still on the air?
Are we still on? We're still clicking time here. Somebody laid that. Yeah, we're good. Thank you, Mark. People don't know, and I think that was a spam call.
Yeah. Anyway, you can't turn the phone off.
I can't turn the phone off. No.
Well, maybe the ringer.
Sorry about that.
But we put our own people in. In 2006, there were no Americans there. I was one of the rare few that was there. I was still one of the rarer few that was learning and learned how to speak the language. And after that, during my visits, I started to bump into Americans who had military backgrounds. And okay. They were starting to frequent all the little pubs and eateries and places that I was comfortable. And then more and more I would see them. Every year there were more and more, and I started to see the demonstrations occur. And I was wondering why there were demonstrations in this country, and where would they get the money to fund them? And it all started to make sense. I met arms dealers down there who were making deals with the government and armaments and things like that. And there was really an illegal and what I saw to be an undercover operation going on that wasn't very well covered up. And then once we had established our non-government organizations there and had put our people into power, then we started to see In the last 10 years, the families of Biden and Kerry and Pelosi and get involved with the gas and oil industry there, which had historically been the most corrupt, part of the Ukrainian government. They would actually steal the oil, and eventually the Russians threatened to come on in and put an end to their government if they wouldn't stop stealing their oil and their gas. So what the United States did was pushed NATO, and they pushed the European Union to try to go and accept the Ukraine as number one as part of the European Union, and to get them into NATO. And that was a fatal mistake when it came to the future of the Ukraine, because 10 years ago the United States was allowed by Poland to put in mid-range nuclear missiles in Poland, which is right in Russia's backyard. And the goal in the Ukraine, which had been neutral from Reagan and Gorbachev on, there was a promise that the Ukraine would be no man's land, that we wouldn't try to interfere there. But we did. We started to, in a big way, dangled NATO out in front of them. So what would happen is that if the Ukraine became a member of NATO, and then, for example, they decided to take over the Crimean once again, then the NATO would back the Ukrainians in whatever move they made.
Right.
They would, easily create a false flag and an act of war, and then, create we see it all the time. So that was the fear. So, as much as people don't understand my position, they say, "Oh, you have no heart for the Ukrainians." No, exactly the opposite. I have a lot of heart for the Ukrainians, but the problem is that they appealed to the Western Ukraine, which speaks Ukrainian. They're different from the Eastern Ukraine, which speaks Russian. They're culturally Russian on the East. They're culturally Ukrainian on the West. I love them both. And even during the USSR, there was an Eastern Ukraine and a Western Ukraine. It wasn't one Ukraine. There were two completely different independent Soviet states. Because they weren't getting along. And even in the Ukraine up till today, you have two news programs, official news programs from the government, one in Ukrainian and one in Russian, because, for the life of me, the West wants to listen to Russian and the East wants to listen to Ukrainian, but they're two very different parts of the country. Now, what Putin has to face
are they ideologically?
No, the Western Ukraine is very much fascist right. When Hitler came into the Ukraine, they were the ones that cheered him on.
Okay.
They cheered him on until they got the Germans got to a point where they started slaughtering all the Ukrainians they could get their guns on. So, but they still remain fascist, and they still remain that way today. And you'll see some people said, "Oh, it's Photoshop, seeing the Nazi the symbols on the swastikas on the side of the helmets." I don't know if it's photoshopped or not, but it's not within the realm of possibility or probability that there are soldier units in the Ukraine that still use and wear the swastika. Mm-hmm. So, and with that in mind, we already know that the United States government was taken over by fascists many, many years ago. Operation Paperclip, the Germans that came over through Operation Paperclip, they overtook our government. They overtook the governments of South America, instituted fascist dictatorships. And what we have is a very, very astute form of fascism here in the United States. We're pushing it as a new world order. It is the deep state here. It has nothing to do with this democracy we supposedly have. But poor Putin, he's stuck there in Russia, which is not a world superpower. They have nukes, but they're a regional power at best. And he's wondering, how am I going to keep the nuclear missiles out of the Ukraine and out and off my back door to protect the people of Russia? Because let's face it, ever since the United States invaded Russia in 1924 with the expeditionary force to the eastern part of the country that was sent back home, sent packing, Russia has been the prize of the New World Order since the institution of the central banking system in the United States and the wealthy people that instituted it. They want Russia. It's 12 time zones. They have virtually all the important minerals and in minds that we could ever think of wanting, with a few exceptions. And it has always been the prize.
Yeah.
So,
well, and they are the last stronghold that's not part of the central banking system.
Right, and they're also the last stronghold of a white Christian civilization.
Okay.
I mean, they tolerate all. It's not like China where they're throwing Uyghurs in. They have 50 million Muslims who live in Russia. Okay, there's very little by way of conflict we have, or we see or hear about, in that regard. And they've made peace. They've got Iran on the south side. And they've got Ukraine to the south and to the west. So they need to protect their flank. I mean, how would we feel if China or Russia started putting troops in Canada? Or in Mexico and putting them on our border? That's the exact same thing.
They're there.
So, well, the thing is that in the United States, we think that the Monroe Doctrine only, it only behooves the United States, and no other country should invoke their version of the Monroe Doctrine, which is wrong.
Right.
We all have the right to protect our borders, but in this country, we don't even respect our own borders. How could we possibly respect the sovereign borders of some place like Russia, who constantly gets the bad boy, rap? I'm not saying that they're all good. I'm not saying that they're all bad. But, so much of it is the propaganda. And I've been in both countries, and I would say right now, you and I have more in common with the typical Russian male or Ukrainian male than we do with over 50% of the males in this country.
Wow.
Yeah, they are, when it comes to hard work and mining and, hard play and, using the best you can and, they're hard-working people. They drive around in big trucks that aren't souped up. They're work trucks. They pull their weight.
Yeah.
It's not an easy country to live in, but they are what they are, and they're being bad-mouthed and they've been smirched. And I feel sorry for the Ukrainians. It's not their fault. It is the fault of the United States and the neocon foreign policy that's put the Ukraine in the sights and in harm's way. And if we don't realize that and we don't accept that as a conclusion, then the whole view of what's happening over there is skewed and wrong, and all you're going to get and believe is the propaganda and think, oh, Putin bad, Biden good. You
don't hear that too often.
No, but that's what but that's where we come to. And it's sad. It hurts. It's going to hurt everybody.
Yeah.
We did this as Americans. We did this. It lays on our doorstep, nowhere else.
It's true. It's absolutely true. And of course, our puppet masters are steering us towards, that's what they want. They want the global control. And there are sanctions of us, or not sanctions, segments of this population that are fighting against that are you're either mentally resisting it, physically resisting it, fiscally resisting it. All this doesn't sit well with a lot of people. But consequently, the stories that are flowing freely are not very accurate. And they're all based in some sort of emotionalism. The same thing that makes you want to go buy a new Jeep. War is wrong on every level, and I really, as a human being, I'm really amazed that this many generations of humanity has come and gone, and we still haven't figured that out. But in a way, we have. There are those of us who would no more engage in a warlike conduct. We would no more level death upon people across the way or next country over or whatever. There are those of us that would never do that. It would be the last, we can't talk this out. We can't share what's in question. We can't figure this out amongst human beings. We can't rock, paper, scissors. We can't. We can. But we're not the last word. We're led to believe we have some sort of say, but you're really up there pretty far up on the pyramid of power now. You're easily into the Council of 300, and perhaps even smaller than that. There are some really, really powerful people making or showing their face and announcing their intuition or their intentions for the future, and it's something that we all and that's the big personal pull inside of me is I'm aware of these things. They bother me. I wish they weren't so. I don't know what I can do on a personal level to change it, but in a way, I do. Of the last several months, I've really done a lot of soul searching, and I'm really getting to the point where I can accept the world as it is, in its fullness, good, bad, and different, every faction of this thing. Everything happens exactly the way it should. So, because it really can't be any other way. Now, accepting that, and you go, well, you could take the pessimistic point of view, and you go, well, we're screwed, and it don't matter. But you know what? There's a lot of really great stuff happening in the world, too. But consequently, if it bleeds, it leads. So that's what we hear about. There are... our friend Kat Carroll runs a site called Good News Every Day, and it's all about humans helping other humans and people loving on other people and animal care and all kinds of great stuff that's going on in the world. So even though there's all this horror, and then there's also all this goodness, and then we receive it as one thing, so you go, what can I do about it? What you can do is you can enter that energy with a loving and caring heart and an understanding of the trouble that you're witnessing. Don't let it tear you apart, because it will. If you go piece for piece, if you fill your head with all the negativity of all the stuff that's going on in the world, you're going to be depressed, you're going to be sad, you're going to have various disorders, you might pick up some habits, you might pick up some addictions, because you don't know how to deal with all this complex information. And that's okay. That's okay. But what I have found helpful, and this is just me, and that's the name of the show, in my humble opinion.love. We give our humble opinions, and love is the end of everything. So, if your understanding of the world, you accept it as it is, now you go out into that world and you be the best you can be. You be friendly, you be kind, you be caring, you be forgiving. You display all those wonderful emotions, all those wonderful feelings, all those wonderful personality traits that you have and that you know and that you inspire in yourself and other people. Being kind and gentle, man, it's the key. It's what will eventually charm this world into loving each other. Now, but consequently, there are a lot of people that don't want that to happen. Because if we are free within ourselves, if you're free in your mind and you're free in your heart and you're free in your spirit, you don't need government control sanctions. You don't need people telling you it's okay to do anything. You do as your spirit leads, and you win with it, or you lose with it, or you die with it, or you survive with it. But it's all you. You can only save yourself. But in that, the completeness of that statement, that you can only save yourself, well, if you're going to move forward as someone that wants to be a leading example, for lack of better words, this is all stream of consciousness. I didn't write anything. You want to show, you want to be what you want to see. If you're willing to take yourself out into the public as you want to be seen and act thusly, that's the magic. That's where I see some guy over there being really kind to somebody, it shines on me. I see a lady over there, helping some older person into a car or something. That shines on me. All that good energy. We can raise all those frequencies. Okay? That's what we want. That's what I talk to Mike all the time, and we say, man, it wouldn't be great, but that blinking light in your living room, the one you're sitting in front of right now, that's full of the other stuff too. And because there is so much financial gain to factor into this situation that we're in now with the Ukraine, it's absolutely amazing. Not to mention that we're, as a society, we're in a post-traumatic syndrome right now. We just survived a pandemic, a plandemic, however you want to say it. We just, apparently it's over now. Or however, we just went through this giant manipulation. We went through all this questioning of each other. And frankly, a lot of us were emotionally exhausted months ago with all of this. Okay, now that's starting to simmer down a little bit. Now here's this other huge life question thing, this war over whatever. Not to mention, conservative or liberal politics, people who feel a certain way about certain things, people who have heart-set ideas. Where's all that dissection that was there? That all seems to have petered out. Why? Because the media is not pumping it to you right now. And now we focus our eyes over on the Ukraine, and you don't even know all the factors that are going on over there between Russia and the Ukraine.
Ukraine. It's no longer the Ukraine.
Okay, Ukraine? You just say Ukraine.
Yeah, it's just Ukraine. The Ukraine is passé for a good 20 years. It's condescending.
Okay.
Yeah, politically correct is Ukraine. That's the way that people want it. So.
Yeah. Well, that must be all like the roads in Los Angeles. They're all the 10. You get on the 10.
Yeah, but
you get on the 5.
Ukraine is its own
okay.
republic.
Well,
so.
I'll drop.
It's okay. Sorry to
I'll drop the.
you,
No, it's okay.
It's just everybody else knows. It's Ukraine.
I want to be as right as I can be.
It's Ukraine. It's.
And I was gonna. I had that question floating around earlier. Yeah. Why do they say the Ukraine?
Well, because it used to be like the outback for Russia. It used to be the steppes.
The Adirondacks.
Very similar to that.
Okay.
Here's a funny story. Not a funny story, but it's an interesting story. Years and years ago, about 20 years ago, I kept on having a recurrent dream.
Yeah.
And it was, and it didn't make any sense to me because it involved a mastodon skeleton.
A mastodon skeleton.
A grand piano, black grand piano.
Okay.
They were both on a stage.
Yeah.
The stage was about between 8 inches and a foot off the ground. And the flooring, including the flooring in the room where I was all a yellowish kind of maple. And there was right next to a door that came into the room. And it made absolutely no sense to me. It was, how would you describe it? The Dali.
It sounds like you had some Welsh rarebit after you went to the Dali Museum.
Well, it was a recurring theme that came into my dreams.
How many times do you think you had that?
3 times.
3 times.
Three times. And years without it, remembering again, it was so surreal. It didn't make any sense.
So it was a mastodon, a grand piano.
The skeleton of a mastodon, a grand piano on a stage. With about a foot off the ground, all yellowish,
like a gold flame.
Yeah, it was kind of like an ash, kind of a yellow ash floor.
Okay,
and inch and a half inch strips in the flooring, and that was very vivid. And then it wasn't until 2010 when I got over there and I went to Kharkov because there were 3 battles at Kharkov. Kharkov, yeah. It was the 4th largest city in the Soviet Union.
Okay.
During its time. It's also the 2nd largest city in Ukraine. It is in the region that had voted to free themselves from Ukraine. It was the southern region, or the northern region, and the southern region was Lugansk. It was there as well. That's a coal area. But my friend there had made an arrangement. We not only went out to see the battlefields where the Germans surrendered and pay homage to the thousands of men that died there, but she had made she made a special present to me to meet with the head of the Museum of Natural History there, and they also have a zoo behind the Museum of Natural History, and he gave me a guided tour of the zoo and talked about all the animals there that were part of the Ukrainian diorama. And the last part of the trip, on the way back to his office, he opens his door, and I walk into this room. It's got yellow floors, okay? It's got a stage about 8 or 9 inches off the ground. It's got a skeleton of a mastodon and a black grand piano right next to it.
Wow.
Yeah, so it took 10 years for that one to come true, but it was nonetheless very real and very...
you remote viewed that?
Very remote viewed it and lived it.
Wow.
So talk about, yes, it's not the first and only
Well,
clairvoyance, but...
You have spiritual ties all over the world, and that's really interesting, because you have we've talked about it several times. You have a knowing, a sincere passion when you talk about it. That it's to hear you explain their lifestyle. Now, they were okay, because most Americans started thinking about the Ukraine 3 weeks ago.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
And be honest with yourself, it's true. What was daily life there like? We're in West Central Florida. What was daily life there like in a town like St. Petersburg, Florida?
Well, I'll compare St. Petersburg to Odessa, for example. Odessa has the second largest opera house in all of Europe. Mozart played there. Odessa's probably, if I had a choice to either live in Paris or Odessa, I would pick Odessa.
Okay.
Humanity has been there for at least 10,000 years on the Black Sea. People lived in flats and apartments. They would go get their vegetables and their food every day and bring it up, and they from work and go home. It's a relatively simple life. Cash is hard to come by. People do not waste a lot of things. They know what hardship is, and they know that they have been blessed with having come out of the USSR and having an economy which was freed up considerably. Now, what the United States screwed up was when the USSR dissolved, there should have been a Marshall Plan, an economic Marshall Plan for places like Georgia and Ukraine and Russia, because these people did not know capitalism. When they took, if you lived in your apartment in Ukraine, if you lived there for like 10 years, it became your apartment because it was no longer the government's. The government gave everybody their homes, all right, and they didn't know what to do with them. They didn't. If they had an elevator, they didn't know how to get enough money together to fix the elevator when it broke. So everybody was using stairs for 13 flights. Okay. Until they started to realize that, we have to organize and get money from everybody to fix the elevator so the elevator can work. Oh,
a 13-floor walk-up hard to rent.
That's a bright idea. But what would happen in the more desirable place like Kharkov and in Odessa and in Yalta, the English and the Germans would come in with money, and they would say, "Hey, you sell me this, and I got $10,000 for you. You ever see, And they would say, "Sure, fine." And they would sign over these. At first, you couldn't sign the property over, but then they found a way to create a straw man so you could gift the property over and then get money. It was a circumvention of the law, but it was widespread. And it happened all over the place. So eventually, you have all these Westerners that paid $10,000 or $20,000 for flats that were worth $80,000 to $100,000. These people had no idea what the value of money and what the value of property or real estate was. So they were really just raked over the coals and really exploited by people from the West who came over to do that. So, But living there is very simple. The people are simple, very religious, very mystical in their ways. If you read the Russians like Dostoevsky and Solzhenitsyn, all of them, they all have Tolstoy, they all have a thread of spirituality that runs through, all their literature. Many of the great, Russian writers actually grew up, were raised in Ukraine and were born in Ukraine and went to St. Petersburg to write. So there's really a cultural exchange between the two that's undeniable. And it's just a shame that the West has come in and created this problem and this schism between the two parts of the country. Not to mention that the U.S. oil companies don't want Western Europe to be buying Russian oil. Right now, Germany is 50% of the oil and gas that comes into Germany is from Russia, 40% for the rest of Europe. So the United States...
We're at 7.
Well, the United States knows that if we can shut that off, then we can sell them all the gas and oil that they want. So we come back into the Western European market and make a lot of money. So let's follow the money on this one too.
Yeah.
It's a complicated, horrific trail where the neocons have beat everybody to the punch and done what they did without anybody looking, and it's all for oil and money in the end.
Sure.
So
yeah, well, that's the story that closes all the time. But also, too, Mike, the people being wonderful and all that other stuff, because of that influence of Westernization, it also became very corrupt. There's, from what I understand, everything is exorbitantly expensive up there.
No, when I got there, the buying power of $1, the ratio was 8 to 1. So for value, for every dollar you spent, you got $8 in value.
Okay, that's good.
To put it in the words of one of my German friends, is I've never been able to afford an $800 hooker before I came to the Ukraine with $100. and that is how it works.
Yeah.
And it's different. It's an Eastern European country. There's the influence of the Asiatics there. That what is said about the Ukraine. There's two things about the Ukraine: is you can get anything you want here, but you have to pay for it. Mm-hmm. And when you say it's expensive, no, it's not expensive. 10 years ago, if you wanted to have somebody killed, it would cost you $50,000. Okay. And the $50,000 was there because if you got caught, you would have to pay the family $25,000. You'd have to pay the government $25,000 so you could go free. So that's what determined the cost of if you wanted to have somebody murdered.
That doesn't sound very corrupt.
Well, once again, I mean, it's a system you could rely on. It's a system you could rely on.
Well, a system you could rely on.
It's true.
But I saw a documentary the one time that I went on the dark web. Steve Baird. I was at Steve Baird's house, and we watched this documentary about the slums of Ukraine and the drug habits that these people had. They were shooting this drug. They nicknamed it crocodile.
Crocodile. You sure it was Ukraine and not Russia, though? Because crocodile was a big problem with Russia, not so much the Ukraine.
Okay.
Because what happened with
I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think I saw the program
it?
too. Yeah. And crocodile had been a problem with Russia because they were the iodine that they cooked this drug up with was so stinky when they cooked it. After they did a couple batches, you couldn't live in the apartment anymore.
Yeah.
That was crocodile. Crocodile became a big problem in Russia, and they actually created. They had these vans that would go around, and specifically for the purpose of dealing with the crocodile shooters, because they all ended up dead.
Yeah.
So they
it ate your skin away.
Yeah.
It was the most horrible thing I'd ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Dude, if anything gives me a zit, I stop doing it.
Yeah. That was I'm not aware of the crocodile problem in Ukraine.
Okay.
Yes, in Russia though.
Okay. So. All right. Well then, see, I'm glad you're here. I could have told some false news.
False narrative.
I could have. But anyway, life is hard no matter where. There's something of equal horror happening within 20 miles of wherever you're sitting right now. That's the path of those people's lives. There's not a whole lot you can do about it. But the thing you can do about it is what I was saying just a few minutes ago, is when you hit the street, when you go out into the country, when you go to the village gate, if you have love and compassion and peace in your heart, you will be well received. And this is something that I don't think is that hard for many people. Just be your best self until further notice. Until we know what else to do, just be your kindest, gentlest self. And, because like I was going down this list of things that we don't understand about it, is, people got their little emojis or there's little stickers on their pages and they're identifying with this, Well, you're a cold-hearted bastard if you don't feel, some sort of compassion for people in a war zone. My God, I mean, what do you want, a flag now? I mean, it's you want, is there a special hat for you or something? And if you don't feel that way, then your chances are you're not listening to the show anyway, because all of our people are softies. But there's other factors that, when you look at what makes things happen, you don't even know what the military-industrial complex has leaned up against this entire situation. You don't know the influence and the people that they have in positions, and apparently bombs get stale, so they have to use them up. So, they're getting rid of their stale bomb inventory. And then the other thing too, Mike mentioned it a little bit before, is the gas lines that, there's just so many factors. And of course, the overlord of the whole thing is the capture of Russia for the World Bank. And once they have that, there's nothing left. There's nobody left.
Nobody left to fight for the freedom of the individual. I mean, Russia's not perfect. It's far from it. But, we have nooses around our necks and we think they're neckties. That's what we are here. We don't even know it. The people don't even know how bad it is. You don't think they can take your money away? They can do it once we become electronic. They can do it like that. Okay? They don't like the way you're scoring on your social score, like in China. They can do it like that. You can't you can't travel or go anywhere. That's what it's coming to, and there's nobody standing up for your right to do that. God selects strange people and odd means to achieve its end. And who would have ever thought that RTTV would be the only place you could get a real handle on some news that has been so perverted by the United States that you won't even recognize what it's about.
Yep.
The whole thing is perverse. The whole system is perverse. It's been perverse for so long. I was watching, I posted the Chappelle comedy thing. He goes, this whole world has been fucked up since they blew Kennedy's brains out right in front of everybody, Yeah. And then they took out Kennedy too, then Martin Luther King, and then, everybody else. There's 6 or 7 of them, just, most of them black after that. It's Malcolm X. It's like, yeah, they did it and just did it. And everybody just sat there and we've stayed in shock ever since. And they've been doing this forever now. They've been doing it ever since 1963. They've been doing it for most of my lifetime.
Yeah. All we can do is timidly relate.
Yeah. And
nobody's going to get real pissed.
Right.
and endanger themselves.
And people like us get disparaged for telling the truth, and we're called all kinds of things. It's like I studied history. Stephen Cohen was the head of the Russian Studies Department at NYU, and a professor of mine at Princeton, was my mentor at Princeton. He died 2 years ago. He would always said, it was like, we should not do this with NATO, and he was the lone voice against the neocons, and he was my voice as well. I'm not speaking from John Q. Public. I mean, I have I've studied this in depth. I've written on it. I have a degree in it. I speak the language. I've been there. And that's another thing. First time over, I landed at the airport. And it was interesting because in Odessa, they took us in cattle cars with stirrups hanging from the ceilings.
You probably like that.
To the airport terminal, where little old babushkas, little old ladies with homemade brooms were cleaning the steps and stairs to the airport to make sure it was clean for the people that were coming in. Just I got some wonderful memories, and it's just so sad that I miss it. So I miss Russia. I miss the Ukraine. But when I got there, I started reading the signs almost automatically. I knew a few letters and I knew a few words in Russian, and then all of a sudden it clicked. And then by that evening, I was reading the menus and understanding the menus, and then I started talking to people and started learning how to speak the language. And then before too long, I tuned right into it. So
beautiful.
Yeah, it was like I'd been there before. And I have to show you a picture sometime.
Oh, that's great.
That's great. Yeah, me and Taras Bulba.
Taras Bulba?
Yeah, Taras Bulba.
Okay.
Yeah, he was the
what a name.
Yeah, he was
Taras Bulba.
Yeah, he was the chieftain of the Dnieper Cossacks, and some people would intelligently argue that in the 1400s the first democracy was established on the Dnieper in the island of Hortiza, which is where the Ukrainian Cossacks first settled. It was a democracy, but it was a male-only democracy. Only males were allowed on the island, which is where they trained and which is where the fort was. Their families were on either side of the Dnieper River. If something happened, they'd bring their families into the citadel in Hortiza. But it was where the first first vodka in all of Russia was distilled.
Tater juice,
and wheat. It just wasn't taters, but it's just so sad because I love the people so much and I love the country so much. Both of them, they both have wonderful things to offer, and if we ever get over this, it's a great place to travel and to see. I mean, there's so many spectacular things in Russia, for example, and especially in St. Petersburg, and the Russian Museum there. I studied art there for 2 weeks. I was lucky enough to do that for a while. So, long time ago. I'd love to go back. Good people.
From your lips to God's ears.
I hope so.
May you travel that road again.
I hope so.
How are we doing on time, Mike?
Well, it's
where are you at?
Going through space right now. It's about 20 minutes after the hour. So.
Okay. Well, folks, we've covered a lot of ground, and having Mike to openly share, a man with a loving heart and a fellow that knows, lives, and works for justice. To have his point of view is very, very valuable to me, and I hope it is to you as well. Whoever's, and I'm not saying he's 100% right. There's a part of it is his opinion and his what he's gathered through his knowledge. But I trust an opinion like that moreover than, some guy in a newsroom somewhere just squeezing out some nasty double-sided headline. And that's what a lot of us, all we pick up on is the headline. We don't read the article. And there's lots of nasty headlines flying around right now. And that's amazing that you picked up on that language quick in a way like that.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool.
Just for fun, I found 10 obsolete words that we don't use anymore. and well, obviously the word obsolete, but they're kind of cool. This one is kind of fun. A pot valiant. You know what a pot valiant may have been?
I've never used that word.
A pot valiant is to become brave only as a result of being drunk.
Oh.
That's a pot, or potavrion, however they want to say it.
That's French.
Yeah. A bawcock. Bawcock. A bawcock.
Ain't what you think it is, that's for sure.
Yeah. He's a fine fellow. If someone's a good guy, he's a bawcock. He's an old bawcock from way back. And what was this one? Anagapessis. Anagapieces. Anagapessis.
It's easy for you to say.
No, it's not. A loss of feelings for someone who was formerly loved. You know, I didn't know there was a word for that. Anagapessis.
Yeah, it became so important that people forgot about it. It's like,
I forgot about you and the definition of how I felt about you.
It's like the half-life of that word was like 15 millionths of a second. It had no chance. It's like, who wants to remember a word that reminds you of like of a bad relationship?
Yes, that's what we need. It's Anagapessis. I don't even know if I'm saying it right. And these last two are kind of good. Yestreen. It was last night. Last night. Yesterday evening. It's a Scottish word.
Oh, yeah.
Yestreen.
They don't even speak English.
Yestreen. And this one's my favorite. And I've actually used this before,
right.
And people look at you funny when you say it.
Okay, well, I just need people to start looking at me funny again, so
okay.
We'll give it to me. Let's have it.
Overmorrow.
Overmorrow.
Means?
I'll be open tomorrow.
The overmorrow is like penultimate.
Oh, okay.
Okay. It's the day after tomorrow.
All right, yeah, okay.
Overmorrow.
Yeah, overmorrow.
I'll see you in the overmorrow.
So in Russian, that would be Завтра post.
Завтра post?
Yeah, Zavtra is tomorrow, and post is the next day.
Nice.
So,
well, there you go. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you so much for listening in to the imho.love show. I'm Lou Angelwolf. That's Mike Murburg. Mike, thank you so much, man. What a beautiful share that was. Our friend Steve Arick, one of my comedy buddies, is in the hospital getting some blood clots taken out of his lungs. So we pray for his healing and his complete return to a healthy life. And thank you, Kat Carroll, for sending us this distance healing guided meditation. So I posted this on my page, and Kat will get it to you too. If you go to where's the website? It didn't print out very big. Anyway, she has this. I didn't save the site. Darn it, it didn't print. But anyway, she has a distance healing guide. So, like, if you know somebody that's far away and they're hurting, or they need prayer or meditations, or the reordering of cells. Remember the reordering of cells, and that's what we ask for, is the reordering of cells. That's what we're asking for Steve. There are some cells in his life that have gone out of line for whatever particular reason. We ask for their realignment and their flow and their balance to return him to a healthful stride. But Kat, thank you so much for that. And you can post it on my Lou Angelwolf page if you have any other links. But this is a wonderful meditation that will put you in the place where you can truly have a prayerful and deep experience when you're praying for someone that's out of town or someone you can't get to. It's absolutely beautiful, and it shows you how to lift up and elevate, because we're all connected, man. We're all so super connected. It's unbelievable, all the links of people that are coming up in my life. It's you just had it too. This guy knows this guy, and this guy knows that guy. I think we're 7 degrees away from everybody, not just Kevin Bacon. Ladies and gentlemen, y'all have been absolutely wonderful. Please like, share, subscribe, imho.love. You'll find it on YouTube. You'll also find it on BitChute, Podbean, and of course here on Facebook Live and the mothership, imho.love. So, also too, before we go, I just wanted to tell everybody, I saw a film about a little over a week ago, called What the Health. And it was a kind of an expose on the meat farming business and chicken and all the mass production of our food. And it was definitely a pro-vegan piece. There's no two ways about it. It definitely had a slant to it. But some of the information that they gave, it's getting slammed. The film itself got slammed from... this guy goes in and he quizzes the American Cancer Society, diabetes. He quizzes all these people about, yes, they have this medicine. Yes, they have this course you can go through. You can take this care, this, that, and the other thing. But they don't mention anything about prevention. They don't mention how you can eat your way around these things that give a lot of people cancer. The movie's called What the Health. I'm not going to stand behind it 100%, but there's some really, really interesting facts in there. And it has been a week since I've had any dairy products or meat products. And I got to tell you, I don't mean to sound like a fresh convert, I feel better. I haven't had any gastric issues whatsoever. My digestion is great. My energy is good. So, hey, I went a long time eating animals and stuff like that. And if that's what you're into, man, that's what you're into. I can't help you make up your mind. You're only going to make up your mind yourself. It's about everything. You're going to make up your mind to, stay in a job, stay in a relationship. You're going to make a decision to love or not love. It's all up to you. But just know all those wonderful levels of divine vibration, all those really sweet frequencies that make you feel so good, they're all on the love side of the street. So, like we say every week here at imho.love, or most weeks, some weeks we forget, use your head, trust your gut, and your heart will take you home. That's just the way of the world. That's as close as, I think that's the best advice I could come up with for anybody, So, Mike, anything else?
That's it. Thank you, Lou.
You were great tonight, man. Good job.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. We love you a bunch. You guys are awesome. All right. Who we got there? Oh, there's Robin and Jeff Barrett, ladies and gentlemen. There's Donnie. Hey, buddy. And thank you so much. And Mark and Sue and Debbie. You guys are awesome. And Jed. Hey, buddy. All right. You guys have a wonderful night. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Like, share, and subscribe. Like a robot, I say.